If you clicked in this video, it's probably because you're struggling with tightness at the hips. You're probably feeling stiff in the gym. You're probably feeling stiff when playing your sports. You can't get into the positions that you want. You can't get depth in the squat. Anything that prevents you from moving in the way that you want at the hip level, this routine is going to be for you. I'm going to try to spend as little time introducing this video just to get you guys into the routine, get you guys training. Real quick, before we do that though, I do want to plug myself. If you are someone that's struggling with things like these at the movement level, at multiple joints at the same time, I need to recommend to you my Move Mastery Kinstretch platform. If you don't know what Kinstretch is, we're pretty much going to do a very short Kinstretch class here. It's strength training at the end ranges, joint focused strength training, you can kind of call it that. Designed specifically for active adults and athletes who are dealing with pains and injuries that are preventing them from playing the sports the way they want to the level they want to, with the people they want to, whenever they want to. This is both for your hiker who has back pain when they come back from their hikes, as it is for the hockey player that just tore the adductor off the bone, as it is for the football player who's currently rehabbing their Achilles tendon. Everyone that has had an injury in the past, that's going to be a great platform for you. There's going to be a bunch of classes from a bunch of joints, but you can separate it also by class time. There's a couple Kinstretch programs in there that take you through a progression of all these movements. And so if you guys want to check it out, the link will be in the description. Now, to not waste any time, let's get into what tightness is and the routine. So everybody sees tightness as kind of this thing that you have to release. It feels like something that you have to either crack or you have to get it massaged. And you see people like obviously getting the massage done, they'll pinch it and then move around with it, which are all great practices, but it makes sense in our head that that's what would fix the tightness, because that's what releases things. You want to get things that are tissues that are clumped together and make them spread apart. However, for us to be able to do that, we first need to understand what the mechanism that creates the tightness in the first place is. And tightness, guys, has a lot more to do with a weakness than it has to do with stiffness and tightness itself. And this is probably why you've noticed that stretching and getting massages and going to the chiro and sometimes even acupuncture, all those things that are external, that are coming from the outside of you, are not necessarily helping long term. It is unlikely that just that by itself will help relieve your tightness long term. Most likely what's happening is you're stretching, or you go to the chiro, or whatever the hell you're doing, and you're feeling good for a few hours. But what's happening after that is that you go home, you go about your day, everything is okay for a few hours. Once you get back into your schedule and you're gonna go train the next day, you're gonna go practice a sport, and you're feeling tight all over the place again. Super common experience, I can say, with my one-on-one clients and even with people that I've coached through Kinstretch before. That is exactly why. And the reason for that is because, like I said before, tightness is a manifestation of weakness. And weakness is not solved through chiro, through stretching, through cryotherapy, through anything. Weakness is solved through training. Strength training, specifically at the end ranges, which is exactly what we do in Kinstretch classes. Whenever your nervous system feels that there's a certain part of your body that's weaker than the others, it kind of sends the signal to contract and to not allow you to use that range of motion as much, which is exactly why we feel that tightness, because it knows it's weak. There's evidence for it that if we go into that position to a high enough intensity, that tissue is in danger because it's not strong enough to support that movement. So what we have to do when we are looking to get away from tightness is give enough evidence to the nervous system that, hey, yo, nervous system, we're strong here, we're safe, we're comfortable, let me breathe and show you that we're comfortable in this position. And then the nervous system will be like, oh, we're cool, let me go a little more. And what if I go a little more and a little more and a little more? And that's how you gain that long-term mobility. And that's where I use the term mobility, because that's where mobility is applicable. People confuse mobility with flexibility, and it's a disaster when it comes to that. I hate using that term, even in my Instagram posts or my TikTok posts, because people don't really understand what mobility is. Mobility is having the strength in that end range to the point where your nervous system allows you to get more and more and more of that strength, of that range of motion. That's how you create mobility. Mobility is strength. So what this routine is going to do is allow us to build evidence to our nervous system that we are strong at the hip position, at the hip joint, in multiple positions at the same time. We're first going to start with a rotation routine. and then we're gonna go ahead and go into our flexion and extension. There also is abduction and adduction. I'm not including those movements here just so we can keep the routine a little shorter, because I think most people are gonna benefit more, honestly, mostly from the rotation. Most people, what they're missing in their routines is rotation. And so we're gonna focus on that the most. But if you want to include some abduction and adduction exercises as well, again, check the Move Mastery Kinstretch platform. Everything is down there for every single joint, every single range of motion. All right, so the first movement we're gonna be doing is gonna be the hip controlled articular rotations, in short, CARs. If you join the Move Mastery Kinstretch platform, or if you come to any Kinstretch class or anything related to Kinstretch at all, CARs are gonna be a huge part of it. And the reason for that is because CARs are one of the best ways to show our nervous system where our end ranges are. So you're gonna see, I'm gonna put up on the screen right now, the diagram of a hip performing a controlled articular rotation, and you're gonna see that it glides through the entire hip capsule. And it shows you how much range of motion we have at the hip joint. It's a ball socket joint, so it moves a lot, and it's meant to. And starting the routine with the CARs and starting Kinstretch classes as a whole with CARs is a great way to show the before and after to yourself, to your own nervous system, of we're tight in the beginning, then we're gonna go through the routine, and then we're gonna try the CARs again, and now we're gonna feel better. It gives the nervous system a very good before and after comparison to do in the moment, like maybe 30, 40 minutes apart, which is great. So we're gonna go ahead and start with the hip CARs in this quadruped position over here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring our knee up to our chest with our foot off the floor. We're gonna go all the way out into as much abduction as we can. And remember, for compensation patterns, what we don't want to see, that I see a lot when people are trying to do hip CARs, is this stuff. We don't want to see our belly button move away from the floor at any point in time. So belly button and sternum face the floor the whole time. We're going to stay in this abduction range. Once we can't go into any more abduction, we're going to go internal rotation, extension, do a glute kickback all the way up into the sky, and bring back to where you started. We're going to reverse it. Squeeze your glutes on the way up, squeeze your hamstrings. We're gonna go all the way out into external rotation. Once you can't go into any more extension, all the way up into abduction and hip flexion, and right back to where you started. And so you're gonna notice that once you start getting good at hip CARs, once you notice that you start training your hips a lot, that by doing more hip CARs, it's unlikely that your hip CAR is going to improve tremendously unless you put a lot of intensity and a lot of reps into it, and which could take a couple of years, because the CARs, by definition, just like this, at least in the way that I just did them, they're not a strong enough signal to create really an anatomical change. But when we do train the hips with the other exercises in this routine, and you go back to the CARs after a few weeks and months of doing that, you should experience a range of motion gain in your hip CARs and a control gain in your hip CARs, and it should feel easier to do this hip CAR. So this is the quadruped hip CARs. There's a lot of other variations of hip CARs that you can do. I do plan on posting them. If you guys want to check out more, let me know. I can make just a hip CAR video if you guys want. There's like enough for me to make a full video on this stuff. So yeah, I recommend for you guys to start off with a hip CAR before we do the routine. Give me 5 reps each side. And then move on to the rest of the routine that we're about to do next. So just like mentioned before, we're gonna go ahead and do the rotational parts of our hip first. And for us to be able to train hip rotation, one of the easiest ways, one of the best base positions that we have is gonna be the 90-90. So for you to take the 90-90 position, you're gonna do 90 degrees at the ankles, 90 degrees at the knees, 90 degrees at the hips, 90 degrees at the knees, 90 degrees at the other ankle. You'll make sure that all these joints are stacked in 90 degrees, making kind of like a square with your hips. Since we're going to be working external rotation, we're going to be working with the front leg. Right now, in the position that I am, in this position of the 90-90, my left leg, this one, is in external rotation, and my right leg is over here in internal rotation. If I switch over to the other side, now my right leg is in external rotation and my left leg is in internal rotation. So always the trail leg is always going to be the one that's going to be in internal rotation. So what we're going to be doing for the rotational part of this routine is we're going to be working with passive range holds. The difference between your passive range and your active range, just so you guys can understand. This is the full active range of motion of my finger. I can totally control my finger across all these ranges of motion. You're going to see me access my passive range. This is it. Now, if I let go of my right finger from my left finger and I try to stay in that position, notice how it snaps back. I'll do it again. snap back into position. This is my passive range, this is my active range. I don't have control over, there's a gap between what I have control over and where I can get to. So let's say, for example, my hip, my external rotation of my front hip, I have control over this range of motion. This is as much as I can go. This is me externally rotating my hip more. Now look how much range of motion I have passively. Let me grab it with my hand. Yeah, almost bring it to my face. Now, if I slowly let go of my hand, my foot's slowly gonna start falling back down to where I have that active range control. So the whole goal with passive range holds is for us to put ourselves up in that passive range, contract up, trying to get more external rotation, let go of the hand, and try to hold that position in external rotation. A passive range hold. Now notice how I fell. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to close that gap between the passive range and the active range. And remember what I said in the beginning, mobility is strength. And so what you don't have, and the reason why your hips are currently tight is because there's so little active range control, even if you do have good passive range, that you have to make your passive range active. So the way that we do that is with the passive range holds. Now, with us doing the passive range holds, we are building evidence for the nervous system that, hey, we have enough strength to be able to control ourselves in this range of motion. Let's see what's gonna happen here. And let's see what's gonna happen here. And let's see what's gonna happen here. And then we keep going until we have enough range of motion to the point where we feel mobile enough. So let's go ahead and get some reps of passive range holds in for the hip external rotation. We're gonna go ahead and get our hand under our foot. Make sure your knee stays on the floor throughout the entire time in this process. Bring it all the way up into as much external rotation as you can until you feel a pretty good stretch in your glutes. Now what I want you to try to do is bring that foot up towards your face while that knee stays on the floor, and slowly remove the hand. You're gonna notice you're gonna lose height at the heel, and hold. 3, 2, 1, relax, reset, take a deep breath. Remember, irradiate. If you don't know what irradiation is, I'm gonna leave a video for you guys to check out in the description on how to irradiate, but I want you guys to breathe in, squeeze your core, squeeze your hips, grab your hand again, bring it all the way up, and squeeze the foot up towards your face, and don't let it fall. Hand comes out. 3, 2, 1, and relax. So that is the hip external rotation passive range holds. I recommend a set or 2 sets of 10 to 15 reps. Make sure you're trying to hold at the top for 2 to 3 seconds. And the most important thing too of the passive range holds is please don't plop yourself down. If you're slowly going to fail into that position, then try to slowly parachute it down. Don't let your leg fall for no reason. All right, so I switched positions here to work the exact same leg, but in internal rotation. You might notice that internal rotation may be better or worse. From my experience, there are certain sports in which internal rotation is promoted and required a lot, that people that practice that sport for a long time will have better internal rotation than external rotation. It's usually the case with hockey goalies. They generally speaking have a high degree of internal rotation. Usually women have better internal rotation than men. Men have better external rotation than women. These are just vast generalizations, by the way. It's not a rule at all. I've seen both cases in which I've seen hockey goalies that don't have amazing internal rotation, but I've also seen women that have amazing external rotation. It's not a one size fits all, but these are just general thoughts to have, is that most likely most women are going to have pretty good internal rotation. So just like I explained to you guys, the external rotation side in which we work the front leg, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing with the back leg. We're going to grab our hand, put under our heel, bring yourselves into our passive range of internal rotation, and slowly get the hand out. 3, 2, 1, and hold, 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 and parachute it down. I'm going to give you guys one more rep. Relax your leg as much as you can. Irradiate. Squeeze your core, squeeze your quads, squeeze your hips, and hand comes out. Hold it, hold it. 5, 4, 3, 2, and relax. Go all the way down. Fantastic. Same thing here. I recommend 1 or 2 sets of 10 to 15 reps, and please make sure you are parachuting down after holding it in the air for 3 seconds. Now we're gonna get into the more fun part of this routine, which is the hip extension and hip flexion part. This is going to be a movement for hip extension that is very popular. A lot of people already do it in the gym. They just don't do it at the enough of the end range as it would be required for you to increase your hip mobility. So we're gonna go ahead and get on our backs. And I'm gonna have to actually move my hat here. And this is going to be a single leg glute bridge, in which case most people, hopefully the microphone, oh shit, hopefully the microphone doesn't get wrecked. Most people would do a single leg glute bridge like this with their leg extended and just go ahead and do it. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go ahead and hug our opposite side knee, bring it as close to our chest as we can. And now this is where we're gonna go ahead and try to do that glute bridge, and notice how little I'm moving into that hip extension. And this is me finding my end range of hip extension. Now, for some of you who already have pretty good hip extension, or range of motion in hip extension, this might not be enough, in which case it would be wise for you to put something under your low back, so that, or under your glutes, so that you minimize that range of motion. And so in this case, let's see what I can use here. Let's use let's use this football over here. And hopefully it works in the way that I want it to. Yep, this will work, especially because it's flat. I'm gonna hug this knee. And notice I can't even get out of the football, even with my knee not even close to my chest. And I've definitely reached my end range of hip extension in this range of motion. So by putting stuff under your glutes is how you make it harder. Now you might notice that this is not, like in the other case, not a passive range hold. This is more like a lift-off. So a lift-off is basically a concentric only passive range hold. So it's us, instead of working with our passive range, we're literally just working our active range and back down. Active range and back down. And you may ask, Nick, what the hell is the difference between me doing the active range just at the end range, or as opposed to doing just like a hip thrust, which works the entire range of motion? The difference between the two is that whenever you work just the end range, you're putting 100% of your force into changing the anatomy and the tissues responsible for contracting just at that end range. As opposed to when you're training full range of motion, you're spending so much energy to just get into that end range of motion, and then you have to contract there too. It's harder to get adaptation at the end range when you're working with the entire range of motion. So technically, this glute bridge routine that I just showed you guys is a hip extension lift-off. So it's not a passive range hold, it is a lift-off. And reminder, the lift-off is a progression of the passive range hold. So we're gonna go ahead and do the lift-off for hip flexion as well. These are both going to be harder from a nervous system perspective for your brain to do, simply because you will have to generate force concentrically, as opposed to in the passive range hold, it's just isometrically. Same thing with the knee hug glute bridge. I recommend 1 to 2 sets of 10 to 15 reps. If you can, and you are able to get that high in intensity, go ahead and take it to failure if you can. It's a lot easier to take things to failure when you're at your true end range, just because the end ranges are so much weaker than your mid ranges. For the last part of this routine, we're gonna go ahead and take the figure 4 position. So a lot of people do this in the gym, but then what ends up doing is they end up using the entire momentum of their body and kind of like flinging their legs around with their torso. You see this all the time. People will stack like dumbbells or cones or yoga blocks, and they'll go, which doesn't really do much for your hips. That's more like you're getting so much more of everything that is not hip flexion done. So what we're gonna do here is the same concept as we did for the knee hug glute bridge, is we're gonna go ahead and do a concentric hip flexion lift off. And the way we're gonna do that is for first finding out our end range. Notice how if you slouch, it becomes a lot easier for you to do this position, for you to do this movement. What I want you guys to do is both hands on the floor. I want you to push your belly button out towards your front knee and tuck your tailbone up towards the sky. And you're gonna notice your hamstrings are immediately gonna say hello to you. You're gonna get a pretty big stretch in the hamstring. Whenever you are in deep end range of hip flexion, what's being put at length is the hamstring on the same side. What we're looking to do here is just simply lift the knee and the heel off the floor, hold for 3 seconds, and parachute it down. Pretty simple, not easy. So let's go ahead and do it. We're gonna go ahead and take a very deep breath and push the air down towards our stomach. And 3, 2, 1, belly button out, tailbone up, heel off the floor, and hold 3, 2, 1, and relax, parachute it down, don't plop it down. You're gonna notice some people watching this video, you're gonna have more range of motion than I am. Some people are gonna be able to do this while they're all the way in front over here. Some people are not gonna be able to do this at all. They're gonna have to keep their legs all the way back here and do the lift-offs in this position. The main goal is for you to be at your personal end range or near it. The goal is to move as little as possible. So for me, for example, me being all the way back here, I can move at a good, no, this is like 5-6 inches. That's not what we're looking for. That's way too far from my end range. If I'm all the way up here, I can't even get it off the floor. So that's not comfortable for me either. I want to find the position in which I am exactly a good 1/2 inch to 1 inch away from my end range of motion, which for me would be about right here. Always look for your personal end range. Whenever you are in a kin stretch class, it is very likely that everyone is going to look different, simply because everyone has different end ranges at every single joint. Remember, we are looking to train your body. There's not a standard. There's no specific form that we're looking to accomplish here. There's nothing exists by itself like it does in maybe like a CrossFit class or anything else, that there is a form to be followed. We're looking to train your body. However your body manifests itself is how we're gonna go ahead and put you in that position so that you can contract and change tissue and signal to our body and signal to your nervous system, hey, dumbass, we need to be able to contract here. Give me more range, give me more access, let go of this tightness, this fear that you have of moving your hips in this position, and this routine will help you do that. So I hope this was valuable to you. Remember, for all movements, we're looking for 1 to 2 sets of 12 to 15 reps, and make sure you're holding them at the top. Make sure you're contracting hard at your end ranges. If you feel any pain during these movements, back off that end range a little bit. So for example, if I'm here and I feel, if I'm contracting up in my hip flexion and I feel pain over here in the front of my hip, all I have to do is go ahead and strengthen the range just outside of it, and slowly and surely you're gonna come out of that painful range of motion. Please don't forget to check out the Move Mastery Kin Stretch platform if you enjoyed this routine. I promise you guys, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a million more routines in there for the neck, for the knees, for the ankles, for the wrists, for the elbows, every single joint you can think of. There's a way to train it and a way to improve the function of that joint. Every single time you improve function, pain tends to go away, athleticism tends to come back, movement tends to improve. So it's definitely the baseline, we call it the GPP, the general physical preparation for all your sports and activities that you love. So I hope you enjoy this. Please share this with your friends that may be dealing with any sort of hip tightness. See you guys in the next video.